Hey everyone, it's Will, Gamer Dad, with another video for you. So in this video, we're going to explore the new path that Varial the cat can unlock, and then we're going to fight the optional boss, Rotte Rivel. I hope I'm pronouncing that right. So first of all, use Varial to unlock this thing, and then you can just wander in. And if you see, there's actually a number of different horrors, and that flying beast in the sky is Rotte Rivel, which we'll be taking on. If you look at the map, there are orange horrors as well as the red one. And the smaller orange flying horrors can be fought for chaos drops, and you want to get at least 50 of those chaos drops in order to trade them in outside the entrance to the Moonlight Forest Cat Road once you've rescued him as Vario and returned as a human to unlock that feature. Now the good thing about Rotte Rivel is that he drops 50 chaos drops per beat, and you can keep on fighting him. Now you can see that I am actually running a budget fire team. I don't have a full powered Shion or Rosetta, Akane AS. Those will all be perfect for this battle. Hozuki, for example. But that being said, hopefully this video gives you an idea of how to fight it with 3 free characters and a bunch of regular fire users. If you haven't already, make sure you like and subscribe to my channel. I really appreciate it. Also, I do have a Patreon account for those who are interested in supporting me this way. So in this case, my strategy is to use Morgana, and make sure you do equip a fire resistance badge on him, otherwise he will die to some of the more powerful wind type AoE moves. This boss is completely vulnerable to fire and slash, and everything else it's resistant to. And of course it's weak to fire and only vulnerable to slash. That being said, the main things you need to know is there are 2 phases to this fight. Now if you can end the battle really quickly with a large AF, if you have the right fire characters, you probably won't see the second phase. But in this video, you'll definitely see the second phase, being that I cannot generate more than 3.5 million damage or so with my crappy fire team. So the strategy is to use Refresh Leap with Mariel to speed up your team, and then you use a mix of Burning Shield with Garyu to help protect against some of those wind AoEs, as well as the increased 15% physical resistance. You also have Yuan dealing the damage with his double XL fire attack. And make sure you use Morgana's debuff in order to slow down the boss's speed, power, and int. Now, it is only 15% decrease in all 3 of those, but the speed reduction in combination with your Refresh Leap will really help when you have to rotate your characters out. And the problem with this boss is that it puts a shining light underneath the feet of 2 characters every so often. And if you don't get those 2 characters out when the light kind of hits, after 3 turns of the light being applied, the boss will shoot kind of a lightning bolt on those 2 spots, causing massive damage, which is 2,000 to 3,000 damage, plus stun and kind of move block as well. So very, very damaging, which will allow those characters to probably die the very next turn. So whenever you see that, and it's usually after he speeds up, giving himself speed, then count 3 turns for that, and make sure you rotate those 2 characters out before the end of the 3rd turn, which is why the Refresh Leap is very, very important. Also note that after that attack is done, you have 1 or 2 turns where you're not worried about that light turning on again. In which case, you can see that right after that I moved in my characters to perform a powerful AF. And with all the debuffs in place, you can see that Aldo received 0 damage. Now if your characters that you've rotated in did not have a shield, make sure you do cast Burning Shield with Garyu during your AF at least once, in order to make sure that the next turn your characters won't die. Also keep in mind that being that they're all fire type characters, Garyu, Seti, Aldo, and Yuan, they actually have a natural increased resistance to wind attacks. So they're less vulnerable to death than, say, Morgana. Mariel is actually pretty decent. As a mage, she has naturally high spirit. And of course, with the addition of Aurora Force, it really helps mitigate a lot of damage. So you can actually have Aurora Force as well as Burning Shield up. And again, make sure you have Morgana's debuff in place. You'll also note that, again, I forgot to equip Bandit Sword, which would allow 1500 fixed heal. In this case, he only got 1,000 HP heal. And you just saw those lights underneath the feet. Otherwise, it's just balancing to make sure you're continuing to deal damage before the enemy kills you. And so that's the third turn again. And you can see that if there's no one there, not only do you not take damage, but the boss has missed and wasted a turn. If I had a full bar here, again, you could use it right there. That being said, with Seti, keep in mind that his Tri-Assault does apply a fire debuff to the enemy, and it does do 3 hits, which helps power your AF bar a little bit more. And note, after one of the more recent updates, Seti does have his Blaze Impact, which is a single target XL attack. It boosts his power, and he can stack it up to 3 times, and actually keeps in place for a couple of turns. So you can take turns applying Tri-Assault with the fire debuff to power up the bar, and then using Blaze Impact to keep his power up as well. Now note that at times I don't have both Aurora Force and Burning Shield up, and the reason for that is I do find that Refresh Leap, especially because Yuan and Garyu are especially slow, is actually a more important move than Aurora Force. And of course, using Pure Cradle as a heal is useful, but having Meteorama from Morgana really helps free up Mariel to do her Refresh Leap and or Aurora Force. So if you time it correctly, you can cast Refresh Leap, and Burning Shield from Garyu will cast before Rotte Rivel starts kicking your butt. Now, because this is a long battle, you might want to make sure you rotate people to the back and conserve MP. And the main problem is that you do depend on both Garyu as well as Morgana and Mariel to help apply debuffs and shields. But I also do find that even with this being a longer battle, as long as you're rotating people to the back when that lightning bolt hits, and you're avoiding them of course, then you'll have 1 or 2 turns where you'll be able to recover those MP and HP. I also do have Grasta on Mariel to help increase her HP and help with HP and MP recovery. So if you haven't already, and you do have the Grasta ability unlocked, make sure you do that as well. In terms of other Grasta, I do have 1 Fire Grasta on both Garyu and Yuan. So they're not extremely stacked. They only have 1 of the 20% increased ones. So obviously, if you do have more Grasta, feel free to equip them. Otherwise, you know, even using 1 on each is more than sufficient, providing you're willing to be patient and time your rotations to avoid both the lightning as well as rotate your characters in for the effective AF. Now keep in mind that when Garyu does rotate in with his Valor Chant, he applies a 25% fire debuff to the enemy, and if you want to stack that with Seti's or Yuan's fire debuff, you can use that as well. Now don't overlook his physical attacks. He does have a single target wind physical attack as well as 2 single target regular physical attacks, and they both do a fair bit of damage. So make sure again you have a power debuff from Morgana on, or in some cases you can even use Fiendish Flame from Garyu to apply a 15% power debuff. And again, don't overlook all those Valor Chants. Especially in a lot of the tougher battles, make sure you use all the Valor Chants you can. And again, you can see that right after the lightning struck, I do have opportunity to rotate everyone in. And don't forget that Yuan also boosts party members' power as well. So you can really increase your damage by a lot if you stack both the Valor Chants and stack the right moves on top. For example, Seti, make sure you do stack the Blaze Impact up to 3 times to deal the maximum amount of damage. And again, keep in mind, cast Burning Shield at least once during the Valor Chant in order to survive any kind of future damage right after the AF. Now you can see that this team doesn't have any synergy, so we only have Aldo doing his single Ogre Rancorum AF finisher. Now after doing 2 full AF bars worth, you can see that Rotte Rivel has now changed modes to red. Now I'm not sure if he's a lot faster, but one thing you really have to keep in mind is that his lightning strike will occur after 2 turns, so at the end of the second turn once he's applied that light. And even though he applied the light before he became raged, right after that it became 2 turns, so make sure you rotate everyone out. Also, one thing I didn't realize at times is that if you rotate people in instead of out before the lightning strike hits, depending on how you rotate it, even though you rotate, for example, the 3rd slot, if you rotate the 2nd and 4th characters out, the 3rd slot character will actually come in on slot 2, thereby being vulnerable to being hit by one of those lightning strikes. So you may be better off rotating 3 people to the back. And you can see, unfortunately, Garyu has now died. So the rotation will still remain the same, where we're going to keep on applying debuffs and buffs. So again, Morgana's debuff. And you can see also that the Rage form has a more powerful non-elemental AoE magical attack. So Aurora Force will still help heal. And unfortunately, well, we don't have use of Burning Shield from Garyu, but I don't think that will protect against that particular attack. And again, Divine Flight is one that applies both speed buff to itself, and then the light underneath the feet, which has now a 2-turn rotation. So you can see slots 2 and 4. So definitely make sure you use Morgana to heal while you apply alternating buffs of Aurora Force and Refresh Leap. And without the Burning Shield, all the damage is quite significant. You can see in the high 1000s to 2000 damage. And this is the end of the second turn here. So I will say that, if you don't have a good fire team, you can feel free to wait out the, content until you build a fire team. If you do have at least Garyu and Aldo, which everyone should have at this point, and at least 1 or 2 fire type characters, even if they're not the best, you can attempt. For example, Miyu is a free fire character that you can attempt to use it with. But I would definitely recommend at the beginning of the video one of the names I mentioned, Hozuki, Rosetta, for example, would be perfect. And of course, Akane AS and Shion OG, because the OG version has that 3 times XL slash, and his Valor Chant does have a physical debuff, which really helps to mitigate the physical portion of the damage. Now, just to let you know, I did try using Annabelle instead of Morgana because of her, Guardian Soul or Elemental Wall, coupled with Holy Saber and Deliverance Sword. And the problem is, I found that Annabelle is way too slow to sometimes apply some of those debuffs. As well, don't forget that her Deliverance Sword doesn't 100% apply the debuff, so that is a problem as well, whereas for Morgana's it's guaranteed to apply it. And you can see, of all the problems in terms of the attacks that I'm facing, the 2 times physical single target is the one that's most lethal to my team. And remember that you are most vulnerable after getting hit like that once you've performed an AF, so bear in mind that you should have shields up, and definitely keep that debuff for Morgana on Rotte Rivel. I can't emphasize that enough. Without the debuff, previous attempts on this boss, your party either gets wiped, and or the single target attacks just kill 1 or 2 characters, and you can't maintain an AF once you've lost more than 1. Now in the case of losing Garyu, I'm going to charge up my 3rd AF in hopes of ending the battle right there and then, and my 4th attacker will be Morgana. Now I realize that his Wind Miracle Punch is not going to do a lot of damage, being that it's wind and wind versus wind, Rotte Rivel is resistant to that. But that being said, it's still one additional hit, which can still lengthen the AF bar slightly. And even a couple thousand damage is a couple thousand damage. Now also note that I do have a full bar set up, but I'm not rotating in just yet because you can see that the 2-turn light has just hit, and a reminder that you only activate your AF after those lightning bolts have hit the ground. And there you go, 2000 damage on Morgana. And imagine without the 25% fire resistance badge. I will also say that Aldo and Garyu as free 5-star fire users are actually quite powerful. And I know they get superseded with better characters, especially if you pull them. However, you know, for us free-to-plays, it's actually very, very good. And there's what I said by, remember what I said that if you rotate out and the person coming in may come in the wrong slot, be aware of that and don't make the same mistake that I did. However, in the case of Seti, his Valor Chant is actually underutilized and very powerful. He has both a speed and int power debuff. So it's almost like Azami's where, you know, when Azami comes in, the int debuff helps against the wind attacks for Rotte Rivel. But in this case, Seti also has a speed debuff, which will help your characters outspeed Rotte Rivel. Now, I'm just about to set up here. And you can see I brought in Ewan first, and then Aldo last. Make sure you try to do that, because Aldo applies not only a power of boost of 35%, also applies a physical defense increase by 35%. And we're going to activate that boss, that last AF right here, and hope to end it. Now keep in mind that I already did apply a fire debuff, because I used Tri-Assault alternating with Blaze Impact to enhance the power of Seti. And just enough to end the boss right there with one final AF finisher. So there you have it. Hopefully you guys are able to beat this boss much more easily than I did. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next time.